This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, so good morning again, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this first HR Chamber Council of the year, sponsored by Knowles and Sullivan. We're grateful for their sponsorship and for our first speaker today, Mr. Dunn from Strategic Orchestration Management, who is here today to speak about retaining top talent. But first up, we've got our sponsor, one of our sponsors, Josh Sullivan with Knowles and Sullivan, here to say a few words on behalf of the sponsor. Josh, if you would like to unmute yourself and say a few words.
Hello, everyone. I got several people, or I got people over here and people also that are on camera. So I'll just try and look this way. But certainly, we want to welcome everyone here today. As Will indicated, my name is Josh Sullivan. I'm with the law firm of Knowles and Sullivan. We're certainly proud to be partnering with the chamber to sponsor these HR councils. This is going to be the first of 4 total sessions throughout the year. So we thank you for participating in the session and hope that you also participate in the future sessions as well. Just as a brief intro as to our firm, we are now actually the largest law firm in Gadsden. We have a total of seven attorneys. As people often ask, and someone asked me earlier today, is what type of practice we do. I call it Gadsden law. Being a small town attorney, you got to do a little bit of everything. But as to kind of our specialty and kind of what we focus on, we do a lot of corporate business, do some real estate and probate work as well. And we do a lot of HR and labor issues as well. So certainly as to any type of businesses or any type of labor HR issues, we would certainly love to partner with any of the local businesses here and help in any way we can. So if you ever have any need, feel free to contact us. Also, I wanted to briefly talk about the topic today. I think the chamber has done a really excellent job of choosing a really timely topic. As everyone understands, this is probably the past year has been one of the most challenging times in terms of obstacles and issues that businesses and companies have dealt with. And one of the more challenging issues that I'm seeing currently is how competitive that the labor market is. It is very difficult in, first of all, finding quality employees, and then also, as what Dale's going to be talking about today, is retaining the workforce. I think it's kind of looking at it. It's it's a very specialized workforce, but then also very competitive, as I've indicated. So I'm looking forward to Dale's presentation, and I'm sure I'll be learning a lot from this. And I hope that you do as well. So I'll turn it over to Dale at this point.
Give us just a couple of seconds to get things reorganized here to get the presentation up. Okay, I want to talk to y'all today about retaining top talent. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to come speak again here at the chamber in one of the councils, this time for HR. And got a lot of background in HR, put in a lot of HR systems over time. So I'll talk about that in just a minute. But for today, just really want to talk to I want to give you a little bit about me and a background about strategic orchestration. And then also talk about, this is a condensed overview of retaining top talent, because retaining top talent is one of 24 topics that I speak to in really the overall top habits of a highly impactful manager. So if you're looking for that information, I can give you more details about what's in those at a later time. But this is specifically retaining top talent. This is normally a 2-hour session on an in-person meeting. And then at the end, I also do want to share some ideas and have some dialogue. I do want some input this time around. It'll be a little bit more challenging with both the online and not. So Will's going to help me coordinate that and make that happen. And then we'll have some closing comments, and I'll give you a little more information about my company. Where's the forward? So I wanted to do a brief intro, since we really can't do that meet and greet and shake hands in person as we'd like to. I really wanted to have a chance to get to know who is on your company, what are one of your hobbies or passions, and then on a scale from 1 to 5 for your business, is it a concern or no concern, or a huge concern whether retaining that top talent for your business? Is that something that's super important to you, or is it not? So if you could share a little bit from each person and just share that information, and then we will go through this and just get some input. That'll help me a little bit better as well as we go through the next few slides.
All right, so as I call your name, if you'll just, as Dale said, provide your name and company, one of your hobbies, whether it's your passion on the scale of 1 to 5, about retaining top talent is a concern for your business or not. So let's start with, I think a caller 2 arrived just now, and they just left, so never mind. Let's start with Carol Gilliland. Carol, would you mind unmuting yourself?
Good morning. I'm Carol Gilliland with Kohler Craft LLC in East Gadsden. We're a plastic injection molder for the automotive industry. Can you hear me? Hello?
Hey, Carol, try that one more time.
Okay, hello? Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
Carol, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, can you hear me now? Hello?
Hey, Carol, we can hear you just fine. If you'll go ahead and start speaking now.
Okay, Carol Gilliland with Human Resource Manager for Kohler Craft in East Gadsden. We're a plastic injection supplier to the automotive industry. We build plastic parts. And my hobby, or my passion, and I would say it's probably more of a passion than a true hobby, is cooking. I love to cook. And of course, retaining talent in manufacturing is very, very important to us and very, very difficult.
All right, so next up, let's go with Allison Casey. Allison, can you unmute yourself real quick for us?
Yes, good morning. Hey, I'm Allison Casey. I am the HR Director at Gadsden Regional Medical Center. So it's been a challenging year for healthcare and continues to be challenging. And one of my hobbies, I love to read. We love to go camping as a family. I have 2 children, so, whatever they're into, we're into. So glad to be on here today. Thank y'all.
All right, let's go with Daryl Reed next. Daryl, can you unmute yourself real quick?
We provide 3, 4, and 5 gallon bottles to residential and commercial customers. My hobby would probably be I love working out, spending time with family, and serving at my local church. And retaining talent is very important. I think that's it should be important to everyone. So I rate that very high. Thank you.
All right, Emily Carter, you want to go next?
Good morning. My name is Emily Carter. I'm the Business Community Liaison for the Gadsden Job Corps Center. We are a federal workforce training program. We also do high school diploma, GED, things like that if somebody comes to us who wants to work and doesn't have those. We are fully scholarship based. We serve ages 16 to 24, and we are an income eligibility program. As far as retaining top talent, obviously I'm not part of our human resources department, but I'm sure if they were on here, they would say that that is definitely a priority.
Awesome, thank you so much, Emily. Let's go to, looks like Jones Blair next. You unmute yourself, Jones? Okay, we can circle back around to them. Sheila Hurley, you want to say a few words really quick?
Sure. I'm Sheila Hurley from Sydney Mental Health. I'm the director. I love hiking. Whitewater is my passion. Anyway, that's what I'm having. But anyway, we really do work hard at retraining, and we've gotten much better. As a nonprofit community mental health center, our biggest challenge is gaining new talent, but it is a huge priority to retain. So we appreciate this presentation today.
There it goes. I'm sorry. I hit the button. I must have double hit it. So I apologize for that. I'm here talking away and it's muted. So it's very important for me to understand at least a little bit about the audience. And in an in-person session where we're doing a full in-person class, of course, we'll spend a little more time and talk a little more detail on some of those things. I have one other section in the presentation where we would normally discuss. I'm going to kind of quickly push through that particular slide just for the sake of time, but I'd like to go back at some point, or if anybody wants to talk afterwards about that or reach out to me, that would be great as well. And move on. So what about me? Where do I come from? So I've got 40 years of, actually a little more than that, of some best practice management experience in looking at practical integration of business operations, software solutions, looking at quality management principles, growth and development of staff. I've also been through a number of things in the area of multiple areas over my career, including healthcare and financial services, manufacturing, telecommunications, and even the regional sales industries. And I've also done a lot of strategic planning and updating and building roadmaps for groups and for organizations. I've managed both business and IT teams in the neighborhood of anywhere from 3 up to 100, including people that are offshore. So I've got experience with doing that as well. And also delivering a lot of strategic projects. Everything that I have done in my career has been on time and within budget. I've tried to maintain that record and kept that. That was important to me. And one of the big key things for me is mentoring and coaching a lot of my key management staff to be very successful. I've done that on a number of occasions and want to try. Okay, is it not doing what I need? Oh, that's nicer. Appreciate that. Okay, there. So the company that I have here is Strategic Orchestration. I started it in fall of 2012 back in Richmond, Virginia. And I worked with a lot of other companies doing training, event planning, and program management. And just a little bit about this before I get into some of the meat of why you're all here. But the formation of my organization has really been based on a musical theme. I call it Strategic Orchestration because I look at this like a symphony. I'm not a sports guy, so I don't spend time doing sports, and that's not important to me. And to me, music is very important, but I also look at how things come together in harmony, and that creates the masterpiece. And the other thing I don't like about sports that I like about music is, personal opinion, but in sports, somebody wins, but somebody loses. In music and in harmony and putting a masterpiece together, it's just beautiful from beginning to end. And that's what I'd like to see happen for companies as well. So I relocated here in 2019. I did that to try to move my services here, but also to be closer to family, which is why I relocated and established here in 2019. So down to the meat of things. There are a lot of statistics out there. I captured a number of these just around management training and employee satisfaction, because those are two key things that equate to what you're doing with retaining top talent. But do you know that 51% of workers are looking to leave their current jobs? Over half of the workforce is already thinking in their mind, let's go somewhere else. I really don't want to stay here, or if it works out, I'll stay here. But if it isn't, I'm looking for that next thing. 98% of executives that were surveyed say that onboarding programs are key retention factor. They're the thing that helps keep people on. When you bring them on right away and you just say, oh, here's your task and go to work, or here, go do this, this job at this station. But if you have an onboarding program, that will be a huge retention factor in keeping people active and wanting to know more about what they're doing and why they're there. 56% of executives report that their companies are not ready to meet the leadership needs that are in front of them, which means they're not ready to deal with what's going on with their particular company, with their hiring, their process of working through onboarding and continuing to mentor and lead their companies. 7% of organizations actually say they have accelerated programs for millennials. There is a uniqueness about dealing with the millennials and the Gen X, Gen Y on top of that to actually try to reach them. I actually had someone that I was working with recently here in town that was like saying, well, I mean, I have to bend down to their level. This is my standard. This is what I want. I said, well, there does take a little bit of bending. Now, you don't want to bend down too far. It's part of a problem that goes the other direction. But if you think about programs for millennials, what their expectations are helps keep them engaged at a job. Now, when it talks about being engaged on a job, 70% of US companies offer online training as a way to improve their employee professional development. Oh, here's a web thing to go see. Here, go do this online because you can go do it online. But e-learning has also led to an increase of revenue in over 42% of companies, but it's not quite, it's starting to feign off a little bit. Social learning, meaning going back to the fact of being in a room together or being together in a group, that social learning approach has a 75-to-1 ROI ratio over just the web-based training. So if you're just doing something on the web because I have got that tool and I paid for that tool, that's great. And that is one means of trying to do training. But being able to do development, let's get beyond training, but to development, it's that social learning that is really attracting the millennials and the next gens beyond there. And then one last topic here. In a Brandon Hall Group survey, 73% of companies expected to increase their focus on social learning in the coming year. So those are important things to consider as you look at what you're trying to do. But when you lose a good long-term employee, it takes time and money to recruit and replace that employee. It's actually 3 times the cost of retaining. If you think about it, you're replacing somebody, so it's distracting you from efforts that could be making you more successful. You're spending time recruiting instead of and doing all the hiring and the training of the replacement just to get them up to speed, let alone to take that next level learning and development of that employee. So once you can identify the reasons why your employees may want to leave, you can then develop that into a proactive retention strategy to eliminate the reasons. So I've got some things here in this module I'm going to share with you about some ways and some best practices that have been gleaned together. So as we looked at this, here's a comment from an author on good to great. Great vision without great people is irrelevant. So you can have a super great vision and mission, and I'm going to go out and do this, but if you don't have great people getting the work done, it doesn't really matter. So I use a term called high impact managers, and that's someone who is really engaged with their team, knows how to deal with what's going on, And a high impact manager knows when they have a great person on the team, and they do have an obligation to hold on to that person. It's part of what you committed to when you hired somebody, is your obligation to do what you can to keep them and keep them engaged. So there is a little bit of a give and take. It's not a, well, I'm giving them a job, what more should they ask for? Well, 50 years ago, that might have been the case. It's not the case today. So I've got 6 different best practices that high impact managers use to hold on to those A players. So normally I'd like to take time to go through and discuss a time when you had a key person leave and how you want to hold on to. I'm going to skip that for now. If you have someone that or something in mind that you want to speak to at the end, or if you want to reach out to me afterwards, I'd be glad to have that conversation. I don't want to take the time here and now to go back around and do that just for time's sake today. So let's move on to first item. And everybody always looks at this as the first item, compensation. And most of the time people think of compensation as money, salary, but really there's more to it. What's the incentive compensation program that can give financial reward for outstanding work? What about staying informed of your current compensation ranges in your area? Make sure that you pinpoint your specific salary levels to make sure you're staying within where you should be for salaries, and then get relevant information from government sources and other professional or trade associations. And Gartner has a number of things on it. I'm not specifying Gartner in particular, but it's one that I know I've seen in the past. There's a lot of great information on salary range by geographic area. But if you look at your total compensation plan, just looking at salary alone, it needs to be bigger than that, even adding annual incentives and long-term incentives. I've got examples of some of those if you're interested. I won't go through the details now, but things like, your annual incentive, if we meet your certain item by now, by the end of this year, then we will talk about an extra bonus. And then there's also the long-term incentives, things like if we go, and our goal for the next 5 years is to hit this. If we hit this thing in 5 years, or we hit this target, then that's an additional monetary bump that you could add on, or extra week's vacation, or a vacation in someplace somewhere. But think about other parts of compensation that you can look at it from a competitive perspective. What are the employee benefits in addition to salary or hourly compensation? What are your hourly rates? Are they fair, or will they be perceived as fair? Because they may be fair as you look at it, but from the perception of those coming in, or people that are saying, no, I'm not staying, is the reason they're not staying is it's perceived that it's not fair compensation? There's ways to look at that and determine that based on how your exit criteria is happening. But then put all of your compensation in writing. Make sure that it's the full list. So if you're thinking about what learning and development do you offer to your employees? What's your work-life balance? I have an example of a company I know in town here who loves to work with working moms, because their work schedule for their staff is 8 to 2:30. And if their work schedule is 8 to 2:30, a working mom can get the kids off to school, go do the job, and be home to pick the kids up after school and not really have to worry about missing the kids or getting a sitter or having somebody else pick up for them. That's a perfect opportunity. They were able to make the work that they needed to get done be done in a window that allowed for that group of people that really helped them work and helped them make that happen. So think about work-life balance as a piece of compensation. It's something that's a draw for how you do that. Adding in your benefits plus the salary, and then recognition. And then we're going to talk a little more about recognition here, but that's something to consider in the compensation, because that may be important to people more so than the dollar would be. Make recognition a part of your organization's DNA. So you want to look at ways that you can develop and create that recognition plan that deals with both private and public recognition. Interestingly, going through my career in some of major corporations I've worked at, if you're in a quote all hands meeting of about 1,000 people and they're going to call out somebody's name, some people love to hear their name called out and be put up on the board and be the big call out. Other people would just as soon crawl under the table. They don't want to be recognized in the big group. If you had a small group of 3 to 5 people and you recognize them in that small group or individually, they love that. So you have to kind of understand your audience and who you're really trying to recognize and what motivates them to be able to move forward. So look at recognition as your overall DNA. How do you look at that from your company's perspective? How do you make sure that you're accounting for recognizing people. There's just a plethora of ways I can think of going through and how we've done this in the past, but caught doing something good. I mean, just even that sticky note that you put up that says, really appreciate it. This was above and beyond kind of thing. So just even small things like that are recognition that you can really make someone really appreciate what they're doing and why they're there and make them want to do more. So what about employee development assistance programs? Now, this is not kind of like you got somebody who's ready to be let go and you're trying to help them along. That's a different part of the overall picture from an HR perspective, certainly. But have you thought about development assistance, looking beyond their current skills and experience of the employee, thinking about potential? What do they have to learn new skills? Maybe there's someone that you really want to have them do something better. So consider who you want to develop into higher impact employees who can, they can achieve that success and future job openings in the organization. So you want to narrow that gap. We're not going to call this just training. You're not sending them off to training or training them on a new process, whatever. This is developing that employee. I stop here for a moment to say, take this as far as you can, but there's a whole other set of topics we can speak to that are around not always, but sometimes dealing with that promotion within. So if you think about it, do you always promote the person to that next level? Is that the right thing at this time? So keep that in mind as we talk through that. But you want to also have a work environment that employees want to be a part of. So you're looking for things like supporting that mutual respect, which is ever so important these days in a world of HR. Ensuring that people feel comfortable enough to even just use first name. Some places of business, they don't. You want them to be comfortable. They know that's something that they want to be a part of. They want them to be flexible with. They want to be know that there's consistent application of policies. If you haven't documented policies, procedures, or how you manage things from an HR perspective, make sure you're doing that because you need to be managing that consistently. And one thing I always like to say, I've worked in both financial area and in HR areas for several years. And one thing about finance is it's always black and white. It's 99% the rule, 1% there's an exception. When you look at HR, it's 99% exception and 1% rule, but there has to be consistency in how the policies are being applied. So take that into mind as you're considering that piece of this as well. So generally, each person is that different. Every person is a different set of exceptions to whatever the policy is. But as long as you can have that, know that's documented, know that's how you would go about that if something comes up, you've got to at least have that documented. It's always something to fall back on and make sure that you're being consistent. You want to make sure that there's a sense that each employee owns his or her job. It's something that it's their job to do. It's not like, well, am I supposed to be doing this, or that's not my job, I don't do that, which then also tends to compartmentalize and also draw people to say, well, if it's not mine and I'm not getting paid for that, well, then find out why that is or why that you believe that should be part of that job to be able to make that more inclusive. Also, again, in the area of rewards and recognition, have team rewards and team social events. One thing that one company I worked for several years ago did what they called fun events once a quarter, and each department had their own budget just for a fun event. It was not a ton, but the fourth quarter of the year, one of the things we did was go to Angel Tree and actually help distribute things that were collected through Salvation Army Angel Tree, and we'd do that, and then we'd go out to lunch afterwards. So not only were we doing the social event, but we were doing something that was actually to help the community as well, and that sense of helping others then becomes part of your team culture. So you want to try to drive that as you can. So think about ways that you can do team social events that help engage everyone who wants to be engaged and be involved. Identify career paths for employees to grow. So here again is a case where you can look for opportunities for future promotions. You want to retain your best employees. Is that a way to do it? If there's they need to feel that there are promotions in their future based on things like objective standards and doing outstanding work and maintaining certain attitudes that fit the job that they hope to be promoted. But if possible, promote from within. But again, here I'm a little ahead of myself before, but if you're thinking about promoting within, one thing to consider is maybe you have an entry-level technician, and then you may have, if you can think about it, to make it as a feeling of a promotion, you may have a junior technician, senior technician, and master technician, where they're doing similar things with more responsibilities, but you can then show that progression. One thing to be cautious of is not to promote from within because they're the best person doing the work. They may not be the best manager above that to do that. I mean, just because they do great work doesn't mean that they're a manager or can manage others and then have the hands off that a manager may have to have dealing with a little bit more strategic items and less operational, trying to get from strategic to tactical to strategic, tactical, operational. Sorry, I said that in the backwards order. But if you think about it from that perspective, you want to have a way that you can show that that person can grow or can move to another department if that's where the next level is best for them, if you have that opportunity. But don't just promote within to make them a manager, because that could be more failure than success. Just take that into consideration. It may be right for your organization, but it may not be. So don't just think, if I can promote from this person within, I'm showing I'm doing that, so the rest of the company sees I'm promoting within. Doesn't mean it's the best solution for what you're trying to get. And then number 6, change the minds of top employees who want to leave. So that's easier said than done, I realize, but it's an item to think about. Have an open, frank discussion with them. Something like, I'd really like to keep you with our organization, and maybe I could change your mind if you can share with me why you want to leave. And if you can't change the person's mind, at least make sure you conduct an exit interview. If you're not already doing that, frankly, you should conduct an exit interview for everyone who leaves your organization. Even if they're leaving because you're trying to ask them to leave, maybe a good reason to find out, maybe they have some good input for you that will help you understand and make things better for others if it's worth that. Sometimes they don't give you any of that good information, but it's always good to have. So, and certainly for those that are your top employees, they're trying to leave. There could be a reason for it. Maybe it is a match in salary. Maybe it is better hours. Maybe it's something that you do have some control over. You may not, but at least you'll have heard it out and you know that you're trying to do whatever you can to keep that person. So, I should let that other discussion part come in because I've already cut it down to 35 minutes instead of 30, so I apologize. So at this point, I really want to understand what are your takeaways from these 6 items? And then based on your experiences you've had, what would you say is the biggest obstacle to retaining employees, and how would you rate right now on a scale of 1 to 10 when it comes to holding on to key people, and why? And I will mute.
Yes, at this time, people wants to answer those questions, feel free to unmute yourself or put those in the chat. The chat is right here. So feel free to type those questions or comments in the chat there, but also feel free to unmute yourself. We'll take a second to let everyone get through really quick. All right, doesn't look anyone's gonna unmute themselves here in the webinar. You guys in person?
Let me state that I've been to the firm I've been at. We've only been together for 5 years, so we've not had any turnover, any major key players. I do see, though, in terms of biggest obstacle, the ones we want to develop and grow with our firm are very, very driven people, much like us, which that's what we want.
Right.
But the problem we see is they're so driven that they're always pushing for more and more, and it's always to keep them happy and to give them a place where they feel like that they have some ownership while they may not be members or partners of the law firm yet, to always make sure that they're included, to make sure that they're part of the firm, that they, that they feel like they have a place other than drawing a salary. So to me, the biggest obstacle is just, especially those driven people, which is a great problem to have, is just making sure those driven people are happy and not complacent, but they aren't looking for greener pastures elsewhere.
So the comment in the room was around having someone, an obstacle maybe in a good way, is that you've got people that are driven to continue to work and try to keep on taking more. If I'm paraphrasing, they're trying to take on more to become more ownership of what they're doing, but then that also creates the fact that they're still just creating their own piece, not necessarily what's best for the overall company, although you're getting some benefit from that. Is that true? Okay. So I've seen that. I've seen that in a lot of places around trying to drive to, and one culture I was in, it happened to be when I was at Capital One, which I was there for about 12 years. And I think they only had like type A people that they ever brought into the place. And the only way you got ahead, it was constant individual recognition, individual merit, if you will. And it did not, it actually pulled away from teamwork over time. And it's more so what are you doing for the team? How do you develop what's going on for the team and what's bettering the team as a whole? Some things that may be more cross-cultural, internally culture, that is, would be something to think about, ways to get them to start broadening their thoughts instead of that, deep. It's how do I spread the breadth a little bit further and get to know how to help others better than trying to just help themselves to grow deeper, would be my one comment on that. That helps.
And we had two comments on the chat function. Allison Casey with Gadsden Regional said, when you lose the leadership of the department, how do you keep employees engaged until another leader is found?
So if you've lost a key leader and it seems like they're kind of, I want to say flailing, that may be too strong of a word, but maybe it is. There are times where you need to, first of all, who would be the next in charge? Who has been the person that's been kind of the second in command? Is there a way, not saying that there is, but is there a way to say they're temporarily in charge while we rectify the situation? That can bring a couple things from it. One, it can make that person step up, and maybe that is the person you want, and you need to backfill that person's old position, which might be an easier backfill. But what it also might show is that person really is not your leader. You don't want that person in that role because it could cause more conflict. That you will probably see be a little bit of a delayed reaction, but you'll know fairly quickly enough whether you need to have someone else step in or say, you know what, we're going to take turns doing this, or have some way of rotating that responsibility to help drive that on top of their day-to-day operations, and see if that will help. That's one solution. There are probably 3 or 4 others I could think through, but we'll start with that.
I mean, one of the comment just from Sheila Hurley said, greatest takeaway is investing in employee development. And Allison says, thank you.
Absolutely. Investing in employee development, it's a lot of times companies, and the smaller companies especially, don't take the time to invest in that and then end up paying the price of that 3 times turnover. It really is. You don't really think about that cost, that 3 times the cost. And if you really start putting together the dollar value that you're spending on that, keeping and retaining people is one of the key things to help you then grow better, grow further, and help get other employees to get more involved and help them be your best advocates too. And they become your own ambassadors internally. So that's it. Okay, got a few more slides to go, so just wanted to get that input there. Now that just went off again after I. There, the mic went off again after I started. Normally, and I'm just putting these out here just for your benefit of knowing what other things I offer. We generally go through an exercise in the classroom setting when I'm doing this particular module. And this is very small to read, but it's things around for folks to sit around in small groups and write down what you think, what are you doing to retain your employees? why have some of your employees left? What are the things that you think you've done to cause that, or things that you could do to make it better? And then we also have another sheet that we go through that talks about what's your retention strategy? How are you building a strategy around retaining your people? And we'll go through and fill out a worksheet through that talks about each of these 6, and then what are the importance of that strategy, and then what's your plan to implement that for your organization? And then list that out. And then we do have further discussion within the group, because some folks, when they get together, it's like, well, I don't really know, and somebody else may have a great idea that we can share, and then share with others on how you do that. Okay. So that's the main part of the presentation. I wanted to talk a little bit more at the end here about other things that I offer myself, certainly for your information. And then I know my contact information should have already been on here as well, but certainly email me with questions or any further follow-up that you'd like to have on anything. But I have actually 3 different areas that I do some management development training programs and executive coaching. I do both executive and management coaching. I do management coaching at mid-level and senior level. And then in the management development training programs, I have one course called High Impact Manager. This is one of those 24 modules that are in there. There are 24 different topics within High Impact Manager. There are 12 topics in the Align Up program. The Align Up program would be if you're a business organization and you've got departments that just don't want to talk to each other, or you have issues between departments. Also, the fact that if you look at today's workforce, there are in the area of between 3 and 4 generations of people in a workforce. So someone like me and what I call the checkout generation, and we're like on our way out, we have a lot of ideas and ways that we want to do things that someone coming in fresh out of college is like, I wouldn't do it that way. And then there's a clash. So how do you get folks that are in different age groups to identify and understand how they work better together? And that's what the Align Up program does. And there are, again, 12 courses. At the High Impact Manager of 24, there's 2 topics taught a month over a 12-month period. So it's not like we're going to throw all these things at you at once. It's a continuous effort over a 1-year period. Same with the Align Up. It's 1 topic a month for 2 hours. We go through for a 12-month period. And then results-driven training and sales management is really for your sales and marketing department. And that is there's 10 different topics over a 10-month period. And then the High Impact Executive Coaching, which is, again, for management level and beyond. So we do training in-house. I'll come to your location to do training. I'll do a mixed open class of, if you've got 1 person, and I have at least 5 other companies that want to have a single person, we'll bring them together and do an open class, or else private 1-to-1, I can do that as well. So we can blend in any way you want. But we also do both interactive and online learning. There's face-to-face training sessions with me, and then each trainee has a face-to-face section with action plans to apply that knowledge into their next session. So that's just a little bit more about what I offer. I'd be glad to talk with others as you'd like to, and you can post my information out there, or you can contact me. I'm listed in the chamber book as well.
And
thank you for the opportunity.
Mute yourself real quick. And then Allison Casey did, she commented, she sent me a copy of the presentation and the group work. Allison, this has actually been recorded, so this will be available sometime this afternoon. I'll have posted later today. As always, the recordings of all webinars are right there. You can find all webinars from last March until today, so there's a lot of those. But as far as the group work handouts, Dale, if you could share those with me, I can send those to everyone. If Dale will just email those to me, I can send those to you guys. So you can get your hands on those. Do you have any other comments or questions before we wrap up here in a second? Okay, well, I think that wraps us up for this month's Chamber Council then. Thank you all for attending online. Some great questions, great commentary we had there. Well, I said I'll have this presentation downloaded here soon and posted to that recorded webinars page on the Chamber website. And as soon as Dale sends those handouts, I'll make sure that you guys have those as well. But thank you for attending, and thank you for Knowles and Sullivan for sponsoring this year's series of the HR Chamber Councils. I appreciate you all. Have a safe week and take care. We'll see you in the next one is in July, I believe on the 6th. So we look forward to seeing you at that one, if not before. Guys have a great week and take care.